All righty. Well, we had an issue with the stream, and the stream got kicked off. So I'm here by myself, and I'm inviting others back in. If you'll give me a second. Whoo, that was crazy. And so we're going to put this up here. If you're missing it, I'm posting a new link, and I'm going to have one of our other folks post that as well. And yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but literally our stream just got absolutely kicked off there. Hey, Rob, Julian, can you guys repost or post this new link so people can see this as well? So, and we got people joining back in. Hang on a second here. I'm going to grab Emily again. Emily.
What's the new link?
The new link is, I'm going to post it here in the private chat real quick here. Okay. There you go. If you could post that. Oh, there's Luca coming in. Luca. All righty. Hey, there he is. How you doing?
Hi.
There, now I can hear you. Yeah, you're what we had. Our stream died. And so I actually had to create a new stream, which is kind of crazy. Hey, they're good. They're Sheen. Good. Sheen's back in. Welcome. Yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know if Jeremy will be joining us again here or not. But I'm passing out this new link so everybody can get to it. If you guys could do me a favor and retweet to as many folks as possible the new stream, that'd be great. And I can't even begin to tell you what happened. But we'll there we go. Luca, how are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thanks. I'm using your suite, which is really super cool. We should have the same for the next streaming.
Yeah. I'm sorry, the what? For the screen?
Yeah, we should have the same suite next year.
That's right.
Maybe for reinventing in person, we could join together. We could have some kind of author meetings or whatever.
That's right. We've passed. He and we've gotten the joy of doing several streams together. Luke is a CDK expert. So I still like him, even though he uses CDK. But that's his choice. I am a Sam. Emily, tell me this: do you use Sam?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. All right. You may stay. Luke, you have to go. No, I'm just kidding. I'm glad you're here. Good. Yeah.
Lisa, but CDK rocks.
It does. It absolutely does. I am a right tool for the right job. I've been learning some stuff on CDK. So absolutely. So, Luca, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm based in Italy. I work on an Italian company that builds software to understand people's personality, and we use a lot of machine learning. We are 100% serverless, so I have the opportunity to evangelize, to educate people into using serverless, which is something that I love most. And together with a couple of friends, Alex Casalboni and others, we run the Serverless Days Italy, and we have been lucky to have Sheen and other friends as a guest speaker in the last 2 years.
Last year was very nice. Jeremy was there.
Yeah.
And we ate a lot of pizza.
Exactly.
Did you have pineapple on pizza? In Italy, that would be outlawed. I'm pretty sure.
No. Pizza is even worse than Sam.
Yeah, he was there. Gunnar was there as well.
Yeah. Hey, looky here. We have Jesse there. Jesse, how are you?
Gunnar, we are just talking about last year's.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, so we're just kind of catching up. Obviously, this is a service for everyone party. Our stream crashed, so we kind of lost. Now we're building back up. So, but man, I'm thrilled you jumped in. I caught him last minute. As you know, this whole thing was impromptu. Jesse, I did send you a squirrel outfit. I'm a little disappointed you don't have it on. And I'll be sending you a stern email at some point about that. But in all, I think he's got some sound problems. Are you able to talk? I think you're muted there. All right. Well, we'll jump. There he is. So Jesse,
I actually had the YouTube going on another. It was just overwhelming. I was listening to everything 3 times.
Oh yeah, that would be over. There's no reason anybody should have to hear me 3 times, and so that's not fair. Tell us a little bit about what you do. He's obviously a very important role here at AWS.
Okay, if you say so. I'm the VP for application integration. I work in the serverless group, so I work with Ajay regularly, and I lead. I always talk about it. The services that connect other services, so step functions, Event Bridge, SQS, SNS, AMQ, numbers of those. I've been around for about 8 years in AWS, and I remember the very beginning of serverless. In that. I don't know how much of the history I can really go into, but early on, there were two products being considered at the same time. One of them became Event Bridge and the other became Lambda, as we started to think through this idea of what would it really look like to have compute that no longer required instances. And so there was this vision that these two would come out and kind of work together over time, which is kind of where we are now.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And if you're curious, I mean, this is the glue. Right. And Rob and I talked about a lot about this in our session earlier about serverless is really becoming more about chaining or as much about chaining services together and communicating and building in. And Jesse's team's built in all this retry logic and this DLQ and all kinds of things like that. So really, really powerful in the serverless, ecosystem. So thrilled to have him on here.
Yeah, I love what Rob said before. Yes.
What's that?
Sorry. I love what Rob said before about only having the happy path. I like that.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Luca, jump in. You got something.
Let me add that now that we have event replay and dead letter key for events, we can implement a lot of patterns such as CQRS and event flows. So it's super cool because we could really use Event Bridge to shape the architecture of our application and decouple all different services.
A couple of things. I spoke with the Event Bridge team with Nick and Shiva Palli and all. Is way of getting the DynamoDB streams onto Event Bridge, because then we can filter as we need. And the other thing that I recently came across is getting the SES feedback events onto Event Bridge, because there are number of different types of events. It really helps to do the filtering and sending off to different consumers and things like that. So hopefully things will come through in the near future.
Yeah, definitely some cool things happening. Rebecca has joined us. Yay!
We can hear you this time.
Hello.
Hey.
You've got a halo. And Rebecca's an angel. That's just the way it is. There's just no two ways about it.
In front of this window, I
That's
try
right.
to see.
Right. The halo is only at that spot. So, what do you think of this?
Go ahead.
What do you think of this party? Is it just like the last year's party? Probably the same.
No, just like it. There's no words to describe the parity between last year's party and this year's party.
Like twins.
But the energy and the love I have for everyone is the same.
That's right. Yeah. If you don't know who Rebecca is, and I stated this a year ago, if you want to know serverless, follow Rebecca. She much like Jesse builds messaging between all the serverless services. Rebecca has been the glue between a lot of the serverless teams and stuff, and we love her dearly. So, hey, Jeremy's back. I'm going to add him back in. And then, hey, welcome back, Jeremy.
As promised, I'm going to drop so that as other people come in.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't.
Yes, Rob.
Bye, Rob. Thank you.
I couldn't find the new link.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I'm going to be honest. Now that he's gone, I'm pretty sure Rob broke that. So
it seems like something Rob would do.
And that seems fair. Hey, there's Chase.
Chase,
welcome.
Hey,
Yeah, Rob. Rob is listening. Apparently, Rob is out there. So I didn't say that. That was just But yeah, hey. So Chase, welcome. Chase is here to represent Stackery. Tell us about you.
Yeah, I'm the CTO, co-founder at Stackery. We help people build serverless apps, and we love doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and only at the Serverless for Everyone party do you get to hobnob with folks like Jesse and Gunnar and Emily, or we get to hobnob with you and Sheen from Legos. Sheen pretty much owns Legos. And earlier
he had a couple of interactions.
Okay.
Earlier, we get to have lots of one-on-one interactions. It's so infrequent. It's basically reInvent, where we get to have a party. So
that's right.
I love it.
Absolutely,
it's the best time of year.
That's right. And if you're watching this, in all honesty, this was an impromptu, hey, let's do this. Are you on? Jump on. And so it's very unscripted. And obviously, as you could probably tell,
clearly.
So we're just, clearly unscripted. So we've had
Eric, I prepared a speech. Was I not supposed to do that?
Well, I think you should do live your song.
Nah, I don't know if I can do that. I don't have auto tune set up. But,
and then you have all of us. You have all of the cameo people.
Yeah, that's right.
And you guys, you'll have to do the background vocals. Well, I did want to take a second to talk about, I think, what my favorite launch of reInvent was.
Please.
And that is EKS Anywhere. And the reason why is because I think it will be a Kubernetes killer. And that would bring so much joy to me. I'm totally kidding. But I think it's interesting because this is something I keep arguing about, where you take Kubernetes, and Kubernetes is an amazing piece of software and collection and ecosystem that allows you to do some really, really cool things. But it's just a big management nightmare, right? And so every cloud, whether you're AWS or you're Azure or you're Google, you've been trying to make it easier and create these managed versions of it and do all this stuff. And eventually now you have EKS and now EKS Anywhere and plus all these other things that are running on other clouds, and essentially making it so easy to run Kubernetes that you might as well just be running on serverless in the first place, right? Like, I mean, you're basically just building another Lambda ecosystem around EKS and some of these other things. So I like the fact that Kubernetes is getting incredibly easy to manage, and essentially it'll just make people really, really comfortable, I hope, with the fact that they don't need to manage all this underlying hardware and that they can just use these really, really good cloud services. And I think that's why, again, I think this is a step in the right direction to killing the idea of needing to run Kubernetes.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the way you think. Of course, I am a little biased towards serverless, of course. But yeah, so on that, and I'll jump over to Chase real quick. Chase, what do you think about container images support in Lambda?
I love it. I think that a lot of this kind of piggybacks off of what Jeremy was saying. A lot of this is about getting people comfortable with public cloud, API-driven resource management, of course, evolving into infrastructure as code as how you actually do that. But container images is another extension of that. It's about helping people take the processes that they already have, maybe because they've been doing containers, maybe they've been doing Kubernetes, maybe they're starting to get tired of Kubernetes, but they still have all these containers, all the infrastructure to get them from source code into an image state. And now you can use those same processes, which may also have hooks into third-party services that scan your images for vulnerabilities or audit for dependencies, and all of that is still applicable now, and you can use it with Lambda and actually get the request model that Lambda really allows you to have. And then the other side of it that I really love is if you've been saying to yourself, I'd love to use serverless, I'd love to use Lambda, but I have this old school .NET framework app, and it's just not easy to get that to run inside of a Lambda function. You can now much more easily get all of that packaged inside of a Docker container. So you've got a path towards modernizing on top of Lambda this way.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's an easier path to get there. I'm just repeating what you said now, but I absolutely agree. I think one of the things. Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, Chase, I was just going to jump in and say you've eloquently said it absolutely brilliantly, and obviously. Yeah. Part of the biggest story
Chase for me. Julian.
Absolutely, Chase. Yeah. I couldn't understand you because your accent, Jeremy. So.
Oh, sorry. Well, here in Boston, it's really hot.
Poke people on this? If I reach over here, does it like?
Sorry, Jeremy. Chase, how you eloquently saying it, because one of the issues with containers is it's a bit of a loaded word, and I don't mean that pejoratively at all, because the whole container ecosystem is amazing. But containers mean so many different things, and the thing we're sort of solving with this kind of thing is literally the container image format, because lots of other people think of containers as much bigger things, as an isolation mechanism. And we've already got the isolation mechanism Lambda with the Firecracker hypervisor, which, not to annoy the container people, but is the benefits of VMs and the benefits of containers from isolation, in one kind of thing. Check. So in a way, Lambda does that part of containers. The whole container orchestration, be it Kubernetes or Docker Swarm or that kind of thing. Well, the Lambda platform does container orchestration with what Mark Brooker said, trillions of invocations. I'm not sure if it was, I think it was a month or something. Trillions of invocations a month. That's insane. So that's that other tick box that people say, oh, we use containers for having this massive scale and a distributed architecture. Tick for Lambda. And so, it's just, I love it as this building bridge. But the cool thing is that if you want the easy option with Lambda, use a zip package archive. So simple, so easy to use. Nothing goes wrong with that. But if you are more advanced, or you want to have immutable images, or you want to be able to test those images, this is just another way. 10 gig images as well. What can go wrong? I mean, there are nuances and all kind of things. You've got to understand containers and images and layers and all that kind of thing. But it gives you a bit of power. You get a bit more, you need to take on a bit more responsibility. But I think people are going to come up with all weird, crazy, and hopefully wonderful things with it.
And there still is a ton of benefit with the zip package format that you can get if that's a fine enough abstraction. You've got the operating system and the runtime are still managed completely for you, getting hot swapped with patches for security updates that AWS does without you even noticing. And it still works beautifully when that model fits for your organization.
Yeah, that's great. But if you match the Lambda container support and the 10 gigabytes image size limit, you can open a new set of applications. Let's think about machine learning inference that was really a pain to be done on Lambda, but Lambda is great for inference because you can drop your bill, you can use things out, you can fork and ramp up the number of Lambdas that you need depending on your request, but you are missing an easy way to deploy machine learning stacks, to deploy libraries. I have done that using layers, but you are constrained to 250 megabytes, and it's very difficult. Right now, it's just a snap, and you can package your image with all the libraries that you need, deploy as Lambda, and start doing inference. So I like all the announcements that are market openers, because they open a whole new set of possibility.
Have you started trying it yet, Luca?
Yeah, I've tried that. I also wrote a post on Medium just to package scikit-learn and even PyTorch into the Lambda image and upload that. It is really super easy, and the bonus point is that you can also test locally using the runtime.
Hey, looky here. We got Mr. Ajay Nair up here. Two of our VPs going on there. Oh, yeah, I'm moving them around now. So,
I know. Now I have to poke Eric.
Yeah, I'm just going to randomly move people and see what happens. So, yeah, exactly. So, hey, Luca, have you seen on that topic, and then I want to pass to Jay here, but Matt Coulter from Liberty Mutual has already done, and yes, he did it in CDK. What do I say? You know what I mean? It is what it is. We've had our debates, but yes, in CDK, he has already built some, in the CDK patterns, he's built some ML applications, and they're moving some stuff all over already. He was posting about this on Twitter. Super excited about that. So yeah, that 10 gigabyte plus the 1 millisecond, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Billing really makes kind of a 1-2 punch. I like to use sports metaphors. With that, I'm going to turn it over. Ajay, how you doing?
I'm good, Eric. I'm good. This is a fun group to hang out with, and I have flashbacks of our fun gathering in the middle of Vegas. Jeremy's suit is definitely seared into my brain for that one. And that will
Right
be a
there.
hard one to forget. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. It's funny you were talking about the 10 gig functions. One of the tests we ran beforehand was you can actually now spin up basically 18,000 CPUs on demand for 1 millisecond and pay for 1 millisecond of using them. Right? So with 3,000 bursts default in a region and 6 cores per concurrent request, that's 18,000 in for 1 millisecond. And we were like, we should try and kind of do some kind of, next time Andy's keynote world record thing should be, how many cores can you spin up for the least amount of time? Kind of thing that we can go on with. That'll be funny.
Do you have internal parties where you ask yourself, what can we throw at this today and see what happens?
Yeah, we call that our operational dashboard.
Well, if it helps, apparently Rob Sutter's.
Pleasure. Ciao.
Oh, hey, thank you. Yeah, ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Ciao, ciao.
Apparently, Rob Sutter is jumping right now to open SAM templates and run that. If you want to do that, you can obviously do that with serverless artillery. So you can pound away and see how that goes. So, man, I'm thrilled to have you. So let me ask you this. I'm gonna go back to Jesse for a second. And Jesse, you can be biased on this, but what is your? And you can say, I choose not to comment because this is casual and impromptu, and I'm in a squirrel suit. But what is your favorite release so far?
Wow, favorite release so far. I mean, I'm emotionally attached to so many.
Of course.
I like the class of releases that make it easy to connect things to other things because they have kind of long-term benefit. Like a lot of the integrations that you've seen in API Gateway and step functions and Event Bridge and AppFlow. I just think that over time these are going to make it a lot easier to use more things with less effort. So I kind of like that chunk of things. But you have to remember I'm biased because it's kind of my career is just connecting things. I really do think anything
that sounded like
you
said disconnecting things. It did to me. Is that the accent?
Realistically, that's disconnect things too, or else it's not that helpful.
Yes.
I do think the container thing's a big deal. I think being able to make it easier to deploy is super useful because a lot of people are already hooked on those. I think those are big ones. For me, I also really think synchronous step functions. I think is a big one.
I just like that implicit pause that was just around the room when you said a lot of people are hooked on this, and everyone collectively goes, boom.
All right. So Ajay, same
I interrupted.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually going to let Jesse finish her thought on synchronous.
No, don't worry about it. No, I was kidding. Yeah, go ahead.
The last one I was going to say was the synchronous step functions for Express. I think those are going to be pretty useful, and I like
that
those.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
Can I jump in on the synchronous express thing because okay, well then fine. I'll go bowl.
Yeah,
I'll go bowling. So one of the things that I'm a big pattern guy. I love patterns, and Sheen, that makes me so happy that that was the first post you read, and that inspired people. Like that's why I do a lot of what I do. Is hopefully just to encourage people to use serverless and find the benefits. One of the things that I really like about synchronous workflows and the pattern that I think that this creates is this idea of API calls or long polling to download something else. Is you're always paying for a Lambda function to sit there and wait and download data. And I wrote a post a while back that showed that if you set your Lambda functions to 128 megs outside of a VPC, that it works just fine. There's no difference because you're only downloading, you're hitting an API or whatever. But the problem comes when you then need to do something with the data you retrieve. And so if you take that data that you retrieve and then you have to put it into a database or you have to manipulate it in some way, or it's a really large file and you've got to do something, you got to run some process on it, then that 128 megs becomes a bottleneck for you. But what you can do, this is just a pattern I thought of that I'm sure smart people at AWS thought of it too, but using a synchronous workflow, you could have a function that simply pulled the API and returned the result, right, running at 128 megs, and then pass the result of that because the payloads are so much bigger now with step functions. Pass that payload into another function that has more memory, more resource or more security permissions and whatever it needs to do, and be able to process that using that higher memory capabilities and faster CPUs, do that and then return that data or do multiple steps and send that data back in a synchronous invocation, which is pretty fascinating because I think there are a lot of services that need to ping an API, but they just pay to wait for it because then they need that extra power to do the processing afterwards. So I think that's a really interesting pattern that this opens up. And again, in that polling, just in that polling Lambda, you can use, you can build in your own circuit breakers. You could make it generic. It could be reused over and over again. I mean, there's all kinds of really, really interesting things you could do with that. And again, go down to 1 millisecond billing, and it just blows your mind.
No. So one of the things that I've been. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, hey, real quick, Gunnar, I'm going to have you drop. We're going to rotate some other ones in, and you said you don't mind dropping, so I'm booting you. That's the way it is. Sorry, pal. So thank you for offering. I appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Quick point to what Jeremy was saying about the express step function, the synchronization one. So we have a serverless payment service layer, which is going to be rolled out across Lego Group, reaching out to different payment providers. So this layer provides, say, a payments API that is unique to all the business units. Whereas behind the scenes, it will go to PayPal or Klarna or whoever else. The problem we have is the API gateway. We can't do any regular expression to decide which Lambda to go to. So behind the scenes, there is a single Lambda that then decides where to go. Now, an engineer came to me as soon as he heard this announcement, said, why don't we then separate the PayPal or Klarna to different services so we can have separate Lambda fronted by this synchronous step function? And exactly what Jeremy said, the other service could have its own memory allocation, the resource and things, whereas the one behind the API gateway can be just a damn thing that just transport the request response. Another cool example that where this exactly comes into great use.
Yeah, no, I love that example. In fact, one of the things I was talking with Chris about was you can actually now build the same architecture that Bing follows. So when I was over at Bing, there was a sort of aggregate workflow that had to respond to the query in 300 milliseconds. And what it did was, the first thing it did was call the spell check service. Then it had a non-blocking call to machine learning classifier. Then it had a blocking call to the web index, and then a non-blocking call to like getting other content, like weather and all that stuff. And then a final thing to kind of aggregate the page payload together and put it all. And the whole thing had to finish under 300 milliseconds, right? So if you now think about that kind of a workflow, that is almost exactly what you can build. But the beauty of it is you don't need a gigantic corporation to be able to handle that scale for you. Like this will actually, any of us can actually build that together and get, 18,000 cores in 1 millisecond and go from there on that one. Which is really, and to your point, Jeremy, each of those can now flex different levels of power depending on what your actual need is, and have it be, blocking or non-blocking as you see fit.
Right. The parallelization is another crazy thing. I mean, like you said, if you have to do a spell check, but then also maybe run, I don't know, copyright, check or something like that on it. You could run those in parallel because they don't need to run synchronously. And so you run those in parallel, and then you have a step that, that takes those and decides what to do with them. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And the thing I also like about this too is I think that the problem with what I call the fat lambda, right, and I think other people call it the fat lambda as well, is where you try to do multiple things in one lambda just because it needs to happen synchronously, but you can't. So you can't just slim it down to like a single thing. You can't do the composition. The problem with a lot of what happens there is that I just totally lost my train of thought, which is crazy. I was up really late writing a blog post about serverless Aurora V2 last night, and now I like what was I talking about? Anyways, the idea that of doing those the composition together and writing all those things into one big function is, again, you don't only lose that ability to to segment the permissions, right? And so you just have a bigger blast radius. This is not what I was going to say, but I'm going to try to finish the sentence. But anyways, so there's so many really cool things. If I think about what I was going to say, I will jump in again.
So I would like to just say that Jeremy completely lost his train of thought and still dropped some great information. That's the kind of caliber of our serverless heroes. So, and I'll kind of pile on top of that. I call it the monolithic Lambda or the fat Lambda or the big Lambda. I stay away from fat because, but it's when you get into that, you find yourself writing a lot of stuff into that Lambda that's already in these services, that's already being handled at the service level through configuration. Right. And so you find yourself adding, a lot more code than you want to. And the reality is we want to reduce code. We just had Drew, but he dropped.
I just want to point out, though, that going on in the private chat, there's been a renaming here, calling it a Flamda. This is a Flamda pattern that Rebecca coined, and I love it.
Rebecca brings...
Once I wrote a blog calling Lambda versus Lambda. After a few months, Crispin saw the blog and he said, "Why do you call this as a lambdas? There is nothing called lambdas. It should be lambda functions." I said, "Oh, thank you."
Yes. Hey, Dhruv.
Dhruv, welcome. So, and then Julian, I'm going to have you drop all the way out if you can, because we have other people jumping in there.
Yeah, kick me out, Eric.
Yes, yeah. Rebecca just posted also in the private chat, and I'll tell you. Oh, just I think we're okay now. When I first started here, I always said, and now you invoke this Lambda, and then you just, and I know that Chris was cringing every single time. So I really had to work on AWS Lambda function. Not kidding you, going up on stage, I had a little mantra: AWS Lambda function, AWS Lambda function. That's so hard.
If you really want to trigger Chris,
no,
I think you could say lambdas.
Thanks for asking.
Plural, lambda.
Plural lambdas.
Yes. The very true. Hey, looky here.
Let me count the ways to trigger Chris.
Yeah. Hi, Farah.
Farah.
Hey.
Hey, look at that. Hey, I sprung this on Farah at very last minute, and she's been able to jump in, and I really appreciate it. I sprung out on everybody last minute. So, but Farah, I do dig the sleeveless serverless for everyone shirt. That's pretty sweet.
All my tech shirts that I get, they're a lot more comfortable. Usually I have a jacket on with them, but it's hot in this house right now. So.
Try wearing a squirrel suit for an hour. We'll talk about it.
I'm wearing my serverless conf.
Nice. Very nice. Dhruv, tell us what you do here. Some people, not everybody gets to see the man who is Dhruv. And I love the beard, dude.
Thank you.
I
make it easy for people to use Lambda and write Lambdas and trigger Lambdas. And help out with Flamda as well. Things
don't reduce the Flamda.
Yeah. He also helps partners to feel comfortable. He helps partners get information. He helps you to, maybe help plan for your roadmap if you have questions, and will help to give you, some really good answers about what he's seen. So. He was actually the very first person that came over and introduced himself to me from AWS at our booth at Serverless.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, that's about right. I remember the first time I met Farah. We had talked a lot online, and stuff like that. So it was I think it was in Santa Clara. It was a summit in Santa Clara. Chicago, which is in my head the same place because I'm horrible geographically. The other day I did serverless Minnesota, and I actually asked him, "Is this Minnesota or Minneapolis?" He's like, "It doesn't matter. It's in." So anyway, first time I met Sarah, she gave me Farah. Sorry about that. She gave me a big hug, and she's just awesome. So really enjoy working with Farah and have lots of fun. So Sheen, I got a question.
There was people around us. He was like, people around us. He's like, this is the first time we've met, and everybody just looked at him so funny.
But we're old friends. So,
Eric, do you know Farah visited us earlier this year?
She was what? I'm sorry.
She was in London. She visited us earlier this year.
Oh,
that was this year.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
In February,
we
right
were in
around
Cardiff,
Valentine's
and then
Day.
we were in Cardiff, and then you went over there. Yeah. By the way, I just realized I'm I'm the Alice in this Brady Bunch.
You are, yeah.
And it's kind of freaking me out a little bit.
Can we all point
sure
to
I'm
him?
Dan.
Like, can we get
the point down.
There we go.
That's it.
There you go.
That's it.
There
That
you go.
works.
Oh, you have your jacket in
That
the
works.
back. I see the jacket.
I do, yeah, and I got the poster. I've got the one of the poster stands up there, and I also have some of these nice shirts that I use for a small video I did. And not a lot of people watched it, but it was it was good.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you missed it earlier, I have watched this since Drew has worn it. Since there's a whole group who have worn it. Jay, I don't think you've worn it. I think that maybe next year is that.
I have not worn it. Tips, so,
you had to
but
think
I do
about
have.
that?
Yes, I had to, because I worked very hard not to wear it. That's why I'm trying to make sure that I didn't accidentally wear it. So
he likes that other people wear it, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That is generally my modus operandi, Jeremy. I make sure other people do things.
That's what you do. So, all right, Sheen, I have a question for you. So you don't often get time with Ajay, who is the magician behind Lambda. He probably doesn't like that title, but that's what it is. What questions would you stump him? I want to see you stump him. Do you have any questions for Ajay?
Oh, come on.
Jeremy, you're up next.
All right, I got some.
Now you don't have to stump him, but just questions that you may want to ask that I probably couldn't answer. Just curious. We'll jump to you, Jeremy. Thinking. Yeah.
All right. Well, I asked this question, and this is more of this is like a more social question. But I'm curious, how bad will you feel if Skynet becomes self-aware because Lambda functions can now run so many operations per second?
That's awesome.
That's a SageMaker problem.
SageMaker. Blame the SageMaker team.
Well, it does make me very happy that we shipped function throttling last year so that we can shut it down with API call.
Shut it down.
So we have an unofficial PR FAQ question, Jeremy, that says, how can your technology be used for harm and have unintended consequences? So we got that one covered.
Yeah. That's Drew's job, is to write that in, as he made it easier for people. So, Chase, do you have a question? I was going to just Jesse too, but he bailed first.
A question?
Yeah.
Boy, you got me on the spot.
You stumped him. Yes.
1%. I stumped Chase to stump Ajay. So
I've got another question, because I think this just goes to sort of the future of serverless and this melding of Fargate and Lambda and containers and that kind of stuff. Chase made a really good argument earlier about why you would want to use Lambda. You want to use containers in Lambda. But from your perspective, from an engineering perspective, would you recommend that people go down that container route, or do you think that people should still use the runtime, the managed runtime that's built into Lambda as their primary way to develop Lambda functions?
This is going to become a spaces versus stabs debate very quickly. But I will say, I think for me, it's about I think Rebecca and I had framed this phrase called code minimalism. Do the least possible to get to do the most possible. So for me, I think delegating runtime controls and dependency management to layers removes a level of work that you have to do, but you have to be comfortable with the dynamic nature of it, right? Like just like in the early days of the cloud, people had to be comfortable with everything fails all the time. There's an element of things may change that you have to be comfortable with runtimes and layers. It doesn't happen often, but every once in a while, there are a set of people who just aren't comfortable with the bits that are running in the cloud are different than the bits that ran on my box, which is the foundational principle behind the whole, for me, in the container world. So I think it kind of just basically depends where you're grown up in. And I suspect that there's going to be a generation of people who are coming on, the new developers, for whom that isn't as big a construct, like whether it runs, whatever bits run on my box can be different on the cloud, just like the people who have come into the industry in the last 10 years are far more comfortable with, service reliability and distributed concepts. So for me, if you were starting today, start simple, like do the least amount of coding required to get your work up and running. But at least now, if there is a sort of discomfort with that dynamicity for it, you have a path forward to run on Lambda. But ultimately, for me, it is that you should be focused on writing code. If that, leave the rest for us.
Yeah. Hey, Erica.
Hey, Erica.
Hello.
Hey, Erica.
Hi.
Hey, welcome. Hey, we're
I got
just
a question now.
Yeah, okay. All right, Chase says we're stumping Ajay. I didn't really mean to do that, and I've thrown him under the bus. I'm probably going to pay for this later, but here we are. So, welcome. Go, Chase.
I'm going to send you another case of Diet Dr. Pepper.
You probably need it. Yeah, you guys said that was awesome. So, yeah.
Outside of Lambda, step functions, and API gateway, what was the most exciting, other AWS launch for you?
There are other AWS launches?
And we're out. Thank you.
Yeah, no. So I'm really interested to see this class of the guru launches, like DevOps Guru and all those other ones. I feel like there's a really it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing. But if it pays off, if you can actually start codifying some intelligence into the practices people are doing, I think that's another sort of undifferentiated body of work that can be removed by customers. Now, I will admit I don't have a complicated enough DevOps setup to play around with DevOps Guru at this particular point. I barely have my CI pipeline working, although I have been playing around with Stackery now, which is better. Nice. And so I will say, so for me, that class is probably the most exciting one. I, for example, had a really, we've been using the Code Guru profiler internally for one class of stuff. I ran it on a sample code base I was internally, and it was interesting to see what starts popping up there that you don't typically see sort of human speed catch up with it. So I think for me, that is the exciting part. I think in my talk, I have this line that revolutionary applications are going to be about speed, and speed's going to come from serverless. And for me, the other aspect of speed is going to be sort of these automating these faster than human activities, right? Like things that are that just take time to do. If we can teach a computer to do, that'll be faster. So yeah, that class is going to be very fascinating to sit and watch, and we'll see where it ends up. So that's where Skynet's going to come from, Jeremy. Not.
You just washed his hands of the whole thing right there. Well done, Ajay. Well done. That's why he's the boss. So, Erica, tell folks what you do, who you are, and what you do.
Okay. Well, I am an architect and principal engineer at New Relic, and I sit in a lot of meetings and help people move projects and initiatives along and make sure that things don't fall apart.
I think you just described Dhruv and Ajay's job. Your job. So, yeah, I understand. I understand that. So welcome to the stream. If you have a question, and we're playing Stump, Ajay, you are glad to throw that out there. I'm already under the bus, so let's go for it if you want to. Fair if you have something. But thrilled. And we're probably going to wrap up here in just a little bit. But, man, what a thrill it is to have everybody on here. So, like I said, if you have a question, jump in. And we've got some others coming in as well. And while we're waiting, if you're thinking of something, tell me this. What, Farrah, I'm going to go to you. What was your favorite reInvent release?
I mean, well, I think that obviously like the Docker container image, that is definitely something that's exciting for Stackery, and that, I hope that will enable more of our customers. And, so that is definitely a big one for me. I'm curious what didn't happen this year, that didn't get released, that reInvent this year, that maybe what we'll see next year, Ajay. But that was my question.
Nice.
Nice. What will we see next year? At
this point, I can't hear you.
I'm going through a tunnel. I'm driving through a tunnel, breaking
That's
up.
right.
Breaking up.
I think you'll probably have seen this pattern with reInvent releases where, I joke with the team that AWS does pixelated releases where initially you just see a bunch of blocks and then like 2 reInvents later, you're like, oh, that's what they were going for. And kind of the entire sort of picture comes together on that front. So I think like just overall, like for example, the S3 stuff you could have argued was foreshadowed probably a couple of releases ago. Like you had started seeing this pattern of feature launches starting to come up, right? You had batch releases and then now sort of the S3 strong consistency launching. You can kind of see a similar thing with Lambda where, we had a huge spike of initial event sources and others. There were a couple of years where people were like, well, what are these guys launching? Like you did runtime API, which is okay. You did a little bit of languages, that's okay. But all of that accrues and builds towards sort of the container support work that came out today, right? So there's sort of a layering that ends up happening. So I think it's an interesting exercise to look at the launches that didn't seem very impressive this time, and then ask yourself, what are the big foundational elements that those go and enable, right? So I would say like the stuff that you're seeing around Lambda enabling some of these ML primitives is going to be really interesting. It's funny. I think I'm reinforcing Jeremy's fear that we are going to build Skynet at some particular point. So
yeah, but you've got a scapegoat. You're good.
That's true.
Sounds like I need to start. I need to go back to my Wardley map. I need to go back to my Wardley map and add some new information. It sounds like what I need to do.
Right, exactly. No, I think that's a really interesting exercise. Like you could probably take AWS features and start componentizing them onto the Wardley maps and say, oh, this is the next thing that's going to come out over there. So, yeah.
Simon, if you're watching, I might be pinging you. So,
stump Simon. So, all right. Well, with that, I think we're at time. Unless anybody else has anything they want to say, we've had a good party here. We had a lot of fun. I will tell you that these guys, our serverless heroes, we love them. We absolutely love them. They bring just massively great amounts of content to the table. A lot of our serverless heroes are also partners, and they also bring some really great products to the table. And so always and they're just fun people. I still don't believe Candlestick Bowling really exists. Texas Chase is not from Texas.
Some of us are more fun than others.
Did I say Candlestick? It's Candlepin.
Candlepin. Yeah,
you might have said Candlestick, and again, I
have
probably
played
went
pinball
with it.
before. Is that pinball? The paddles? I think he's making it up. I think more than one hole in a bowling ball is a waste. That's just where I'm at. And so somebody will be like, I don't get that. You will. But I really want to thank you all for joining me. Ajay, I know you're crazy busy. It's reInvent time. Jesse, if you're still listening, and all of you, I mean, this is reInvent time. It's crazy busy. So I'm going to tell him what you said, Ajay, and you said this in private, but I'm making it public. But he actually said, hey, if Eric Johnson asks, I hop. So I have that quoted, printed out, and framed already. So, and I'll be like, hey, remember when I asked for? So, yeah. But in all seriousness, thank you so much for your time. For all of you, your time is very valuable, and thank you for giving it to us. And with that,
hey, Eric, one quick thing before you dump us off. So, if you have more questions for Jay and you want to really dive in deep into what happened at reInvent this year with Lambda. Maybe if you send me some questions, he might be on serverless chats to talk about it. So, if you want to do that, we'll see. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, and if you have questions right now, Ajay's email is chrismunz@amazon.com.
Actually, that is so. If you mail chrismunz@amazon.com, you're going to get a very confused retail employee.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I'm glad. So my answer sticks. Don't email chrismunz@amazon.com. So if you do have something, Eric DJ @amazon.com, and I'm glad to respond, or on Twitter. And with that, guys, I'm going to sign us out, guys and gals. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Good seeing you all. Bye.
Bye all.